Well, I was just saying in the lobby before we came out to do this that this film, when I saw it, I found it incredibly moving, but I also found it to be something that was generative within myself, and it kept changing. And I spoke about it with my husband, and we kept talking about it, and then we'd return to it in a couple of days, and I want to see it again because I think it's a film that it changes from where you are when you see it. And I think I'll just say right off the bat, I mean, Mike, you are my favorite living filmmaker and writer, and I'm so grateful to be watching you make new films, and every time I see them, I have this sense of you're doing something incredibly unique and profound, and you are making actually complex portraits of complex people. And I think a lot of what passes as complex is often just two things, not many things. And the closest comparison that I always use when I think about your films is like Chekhov's short stories, where I don't quite know what I'm supposed to be holding on to, but I feel that I've been given the gift of complete uncertainty with my stance towards a character. So that's not a question. That's just to say, I suppose thank you for making these, because I think work like this is very rare right now. And I don't know if it feels that way within you when you're making it, or who do you feel like you're in conversation with someone as a filmmaker, or do you feel like you have a little light on your own?
Well, first of all, thank you for your eulogy, which I'm very moved by. It's very, look, you get good reviews and bad reviews, but you don't get that very often. I understand what you're asking me. I mean, I don't make movies about movies, and I don't ever. I think I have never consciously referenced any filmmaker or films. Of course, all kinds of films have influenced me in this general way of being a filmmaker and a cineast. And I've been watching movies since about 1946. So thus, what you're talking about, I mean, it's difficult to sort of respond to what you're saying without being incredibly self-congratulatory.
But you've earned it. You can do it.
But in the bottom line is, we make these films by creating real people, three-dimensional people like people are. And one doesn't think in terms of we're not doing this, i.e. the things that you say other films may or may not do. I don't think about that. We just think about this is this person, these are these characters, these are these relationships, these implicitly are these issues. And obviously, I mean, it's interesting, I've been asked in respect to this film, to Hard Truths, a number of times in recent weeks, I've been asked, where do you get the idea from? Where does the idea start? And that's a question that hasn't got an answer. It really is a question with no answer, because even the notion that if you try and isolate it, this is a film about this kind of psychological problem. I mean, if one started, I don't know what this would be. If you started from that premise, I don't know what you'd do. Because what we do is start from, we create these characters in three dimensions and on so many levels and in all on all levels, in all aspects. So it's the job is to kind of create and then investigate a real world, a world that we bring into existence that we believe in. I'm kind of repeating myself. And then the job is ultimately to distill that into an implicit rather than explicit dramatic, cinematic form.
I have to know. We keep going.
Okay,
no. I mean, well, I had written down that the characters in your films behave. To me, it's they behave as I see people behave, and real people in their lives going about their lives, and in many ways their motivations and how they are is a mystery even to themselves, and that is my experience of how I am, how people are. And I think it's not quite naturalism in a way of, I think when people sometimes think of naturalism, they think of something that's just casual. And everything about your films and your characters feels thick. It feels like there's a density to every moment. But when I think of Pansy in front of her mother's grave, and she says, and she's confronted, and she says, I don't know, and you're certain that she doesn't know, and there almost seems like there's a window where you can see what's underneath all of her anger, and then you're not certain whether she's going to keep that window open or not, and it's left in a state of suspense of whether or not she's going to go downstairs. But I think that why people probably ask you where you start from is there seems to be just an incredible deliberateness about what you're chasing down.
Yes, that's true. But I guess we have to break down certain things. I mean, first of all, that's the question about where it starts from.
Yes.
Of course, there has to be a deliberateness.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as I've said quite often, really, I mean, I think you have to understand the way we make these films, the way I make these films, if you like, by simply remembering what painters, novelists, dramatists, poets, sculptors, and musicians, etc., do, which is to embark on a journey of making a decision, then to reacting to a journey of discovery as to what the piece is, but on the journey of making it, and that's how we make. So therefore, because we're not afflicted with having to sort of, justify everything to start with on paper and all of that stuff, because it grows, and we start to make a character happen, and then I respond to that and think, well, that could lead to this, and this could put these people together and see what, and all of that. It's a complex three-dimensional chemistry. By the way, I'm glad you said it. It's not naturalism. It's not naturalism. It's not. It isn't about surface reality. It isn't quasi-documentary. It's very distilled, as I said earlier. It has to be organised. It has to be, as I say, distilled. It has to be heightened.
Yes.
Dramatic.
And even the performances, even though they seem they're. In all of your films, but obviously with this film, they require great actors, because what they require is the internal stakes that they bring to every moment, not because it's not a documentary, because it's not something that is just unfolding willy-nilly. It's these actors bring much meaning to things that look like life, and they seem like people, but I don't know any other way to say it than they're vibrating on a higher frequency. It's like, for her, it's Lear. It's someone losing something and then trying to hang on. And that, when I watch it, it's like I don't need to have something tell me that it's important in the sort of, like, it's about, kings. It is about kings,
Sure.
even though it's about ordinary people.
Yeah. I mean, because you mentioned the
Yes.
act, but obviously this is very much an actor's medium, more, in a way. I say this cautiously, more than many a film. I mean, at least the sort of acting. I mean, this is about character acting. All the actors that I work with have to be consummate character actors, which is to say, actors who don't just play themselves, or don't just play themselves, but can do and want to do and are good at, if not brilliant at, doing real people out there in the street. And you have to have actors who are obviously bright, and actors who have a sense of humour and a sense of life, and all of those things, because it is, the input and contribution from the actor in this context is obviously, it goes without saying, massive, yeah.
I think the Marion Jean-Baptiste, when she's, there are many great performances of people, people who are angry, people who have grief, but there was something that really struck me about her performance and how she was doing it, is that I didn't feel that what I was watching was a person who was performing this. It almost felt like the character had a physical object in front of them, and she's fighting through it at every moment. And what I sensed was not like, watch me perform my anger, but watch me try to breathe while this anvil's crushing me. And I think it was stunning, because there was no, I think I've acted, and I love actors, and I understand there's something glorious when a character is really working. And I think sometimes when it's really working, a little part of you feels slightly self-congratulatory about how well it's working. And all I saw was this person fighting to breathe underneath. And I think that was, it just felt like almost like a dancer, or like watching a physical act, watching this woman try to live.
I mean, I think if she was a real person, as opposed to a character played by an actor, that's what you'd feel.
Yeah.
But so the job is to make you believe that she's a real person, which is not,
not the easiest.
But by the way, I have to. I mean, she is wonderful, and by the way, an incredible joy to work with, because she's a great, apart from being a great character actor and a great actor, she's also got a massive sense of humour and brilliant at going into character and coming out of character and being objective about it when necessary. But I just wanted to say, which is obvious, that all the actors in this film, including the ones with the tiniest roles, all deliver on the same level. I mean, they really are. It's a consummate chorus of character actors, all delivering the goods. So I just wanted to log that.
Yes, of course. And I mean, everyone, her nieces and Moses and everything about everyone is embodied too, that their whole characters seep in to every part of themselves. And actually I wanted to ask this when I was watching the film, but then I don't want the answer to it, but I don't want the answer to it in that I don't think that there's a kind of pat answer. But in this scene where the two girls meet at the bar and they're talking about how their days have gone and they're having a drink, and you saw the meeting go very badly, and what she says to her sister is like, she left it, it's going to be okay. And then it's sort of just, it's left, and it's not dangling like we didn't resolve it. But I had a feeling that you put that there, that you built this moment in, because it's almost like, does happiness require a level of self-delusion? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I don't think she's not deluded. She knows she's telling a fib.
She knows. Yes, she knows it.
She knows that, but she's doing that. But she's, she actually, in a way, I think, apart from anything else, she's coping with that. She'll be fine.
Right.
Her immediate boss, the guy in the meeting, said, "Don't worry, you'll be fine." She's moving on.
Right.
But I think. So in a way, I mean, obviously that just tells you about her, really.
Right.
But also, her sister's rooting for her. They want to know how it went.
Right.
So why give them a hard time and tell them it was
hard.
It was a mess, or it was a failure.
Right.
And also, I think, apart from anything else, I think she believes in coconut-free product.
She does.
It's a good idea.
She does.
And actually, it's a good idea.
I actually did. I was like, is there lots of coconut and stuff? Is this a thing we should be worried about? I didn't even know.
If you're in the cosmetics business, those are the things that worry you.
Yes. No, I mean, that's right. She's not deluded. She does know she's kind of choosing to see it in a positive way.
Yeah, but she's. I mean, the main thing is she certainly isn't deluding herself.
Right. Right.
Of course,
Right.
But we're because of who we are and where we are and who everybody else is and why we're here. We're doing what I don't really care to do, which is explain.
That's why I didn't want to ask it, because I didn't want you to feel like you had to explain. But it was a moment that sort of.
If you asked me to talk about the end, I won't.
No, I know, because yes, the first thing is like, well, does she go downstairs? No, I think that's why I didn't want to. In a way, that's why I didn't want to ask it, because I don't need it to be explained away. But at the same time. Well, maybe the better way to put it is this. When I see your films, I think the characters are often strangers to themselves. Or not all of the characters, but some of the characters are strangers to themselves, and they are mysteries to themselves. But you, as the filmmaker, are clear-eyed. And I would say the thing about you as a filmmaker is you pull zero punches. You don't tell us people are different than they are. And that doesn't mean that there's no hope, but you don't lie about who they are. And I feel as a person and as a filmmaker, I hope I wake up one day and find myself with a Mike Leigh arm that doesn't pull any punches, but I'm more like the girl in the bar who's like, we're going to tell a good story about what just happened.
I mean, if you don't mind me saying, I don't think you're doing too bad.
Well, but I think there's something about it where you're not judging your characters at all, but you're also not giving people. If there are epiphanies, they don't come for free, and I think when I think of your films as a whole, and I think of this one, I think what I love about this one is that we end suspended, and we don't know what she's going to do. And I wonder, as you're devising these with the actors and thinking through, when I think of the movies that when you know that's the right place to exit for this person and this portrait.
You kind of, again, it goes back to what I was just saying a bit back about, it's what happens when people make art of various kinds. You kind of, you know and you don't know, and then you have a feeling for it, and then you just have an instinct. I mean, that's one part of it. There are three different things. That's that, which is kind of vague. What I do like to do, indeed, am compelled to do, and feel it very important to do, is to say to you, the audience, I'm handing this over to you. This is for you to take away, to care about, to argue about, to be upset about, to be amused by, to reflect on, to ponder about, etc. And I do that. I've done that often, in one way or another. As to when, I mean, you know, with this one, it was just, I can't even remember reflecting on it. I mean, it just was naturally what should happen, beyond all shadow of doubt. If you look at the end of Naked, for example, where finally he takes the money and hobbles down the street, and then it cuts to black. With that, on that film, because we construct the film as we go, and we say, well, we don't know how it's going to end, and we didn't, and we were right there, and we had to resolve the ending. And does he go back to Manchester with his girlfriend? Does he stay? What does he do? And I couldn't, for some reason, all the options made sense, and I couldn't quite get the thing you're talking about. I used to drive to the location, and every day I drove down the street, could see that sort of Charles Adams Gothic house at the end, where the flat was. And I'd really taken a notice, and then one day, when we were in the crisis of how does it end, I just saw it, and because this is a long street, and I just saw him walking in my head, hobbling down the street, and that was it. And as soon as I shared that with David Thewlis, the actor, and I think would he just take the money and go, despite the fact that he's in a crippled state? And he said, yeah, actually, I think that's what he'd do, and that's what we did. But again, you've got to work things through, and you'd make discoveries. Here, it just seemed inevitable, really, I think.
Right.
I mean, non-negotiable.
Right. Well, I have many more things, but I also want to give an opportunity to open this up.
About the music.
I was going to ask you about there's so many things. I was going to ask you about the music. Can I just ask you about the music?
What do you want to know?
I want to know. Well, I want to know about actually how you think about music and how you work with a composer, because I find the music in your films is it's specific. It's present in this film. It's beautiful. It's melancholy, and sort of how you think about music working with images and what the music serves for you in a film.
Well, it has to be, apart from anything else. I only like to work with composers who start from their emotional response, their own emotional response to the material, to the film. Of course, what composers can't do on my films, which is what is fairly standard on many a movie, is they can't start thinking about the music when they're just at the script stage before anybody shoots anything. They can only, as soon as we've got a rough cut, the composer can look at it and then start having thoughts and feelings, and then share those with me, and we just, I regard the contribution of everybody as important as the actors and everybody else. That's cinematography, the editor, composer, and it's just trial and error, really. Gary Ershon, who's done the music for the last few of my films and has done this one, I mean, he sort of said he was thinking about using the viola d'amore, which is an old instrument which some of you will know, where the strings have got what's called sympathetic strings, another set of strings underneath the main string. And he just had this inspiration So there are two of them. And, you know, we went along to the Royal Academy of Music and borrowed a room, and a guy plays that instrument, came and, you know, showed it, you know, gave us it. And then we just worked it, and then you make the decision about where the music happens and when all the usual things. The only two things that don't happen when we're working on the scores for my films ever is there isn't a committee making those decisions. It's just us. Right. At some point, the editor will come and have a look, and so will the producer who's sitting over there, make a comment, but not. It isn't. There isn't a committee. The other thing we absolutely do not do is work with a temp track, which is about as Philistine and crass a thing as I can imagine. I just don't see the point. It's ludicrous, you know. But there you go.
Yeah, no, I should open it up, but then I just realized I had two more questions. Sorry.
Well, you could do both.
This is my chance. This is my moment where I get to talk to my hero. No, I guess two of the questions I had is, in working with an editor, do you let an editor do an assembly, or are you there from like, what's the first shot? How does your relationship?
Well, an editor does assemble stuff.
So you'll watch a full assembly. You'll sit down and say,
yes. I mean, yes, because that accumulates as you shoot. Obviously.
Okay.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
And then, you know, I mean, the editor's input is massively important. But, you know, the late John Gregory, no longer with us, who cut most of our films up till Peterloo. This film was brilliantly cut by Tanya Reddin, who was a great discovery. John would often say, look, it's Thursday, don't come back till Tuesday. And you know, so I said, okay, fine. And you go back and he'd say, right, and I've done this. You know, if you don't like it, I'll take it all apart and put it back how it was. You know, and 9 times out of 10, you'd go, that's great, you know, because you've got to the essence, you've done something, you know, because it's the input from the editor is massively, you know, but ultimately it's up to the director to make the film you think, to do it as it should be.
Okay, I have one more, and then I promise. Okay, my other question is, because of the way that you work with the actors and building who these characters are, are you a many take director or a lower take director? Lower.
Because, I mean, we all know that apart from anything else, the reason for millions and dozens of takes on many a shoot is because the actors aren't grounded in the characters, or they don't know their lines, or that they are playing somebody and they're in a place they're supposed to have lived in for years, and they've only just seen the set that morning. They're working with somebody who's supposed to be their spouse, who's been their spouse for decades and they've only just met, all that stuff. Or they're wearing a costume that they had no input into what it was, and all of that stuff. None of those things apply. I mean, it's all integrated. The collaboration between the actor, the production designer, the costume designer, the makeup designer, me, are all achieved long before you get to the shoot, or in preparation, or in good time, so it's solid. Then the scenes are all, as you will know, are all. I mean, everyone knows that we spend weeks. In the case of this film, 14 weeks preparing the characters and the relationships. But the actual what goes in front of the camera is developed scene by scene, location by location during the shoot. Starting with improvising, always without the crew there, by the way, preparation. Starting with improvising and then scripting through rehearsal. I don't go away and write it down and bring it back. It's scripted through rehearsal, and we arrive at something that's very, very precise. So the actors are solid. To answer your question, we don't do any more takes than you need to. Sometimes, quite not infrequently. After a take, I will say, okay, let's go again. And everyone says, why? Why? That was great. And it's because we're talking about nuances of behaviour, subtle things. And those are the things to be able to choose from at a later stage in the edit, in the cutting room, you know. And so that you really are going to get the absolute best the essence of the moment.
Wonderful. Okay, I'll finally allow someone to ask something. Yes, you.
Thank you very much for the amazing film.
Thank you.
Just a quick question: when you embark on your investigations, as you call them, and explorations with the characters, with the actors, do you ever find that? I mean, obviously, you said you have many weeks of preparation, so obviously, it's a very, very thorough process. But do you ever find that sometimes maybe the character and their arc and the story is veering in a direction that you feel isn't quite right, and then you have to sort of go back at all, or does it sort of just generally proceed and it sort of flows, and you sort of feel, yes, we're heading in the right direction? Or does that ever happen that you actually feel that maybe it's not quite, and you have to return and reassess and reevaluate, and then?
Well, it's not. In terms of what you've just said, you don't have to return and reassess. But as I've said already a couple of times, the journey is one of my interaction with the material, as with any art. So, of course, things happen some things happen and you think that's fantastic and you go with it, and that creates that's the source material of the final moment. Plenty of things happen, and we're not just talking about the end. It evolves and you move towards what is going to be the time present, the dramatic material. I'm constantly, of course, interacting with it and saying, moving it in this direction and that direction so that it all coheres together. So of course things do happen, and you think, it's not so much I think that's wrong, or it's that, my job is to get into the condition of its dramatic premise, its cinematic possibilities. So but a great deal of improvisation goes on, and there are famous improvisations that there isn't time to describe here, which went on for 10, 11 hours, where all sorts of things happened, and that gave us great chunks of source material. But that doesn't mean what was in the film finally was exactly what happened. It's source material. It's there to challenge. There have been occasions when traumatic things happen, and some characters, has happened a couple of times famously, where the characters have, in the improvisation, simply walked off and gone, and that is dramatically not helpful. But then it's then we've got the language of motivation. So okay, well, if X does this, what would motivate X doing that instead, and so on. It's a very complex, but it's about dealing with the reality of the thing, but at the same time honing it and moving it, and if you like, challenging it. So again, it's it's what any sculptor does with a lump of stone, really. It goes this way and that way, and you respond to it, and so on. So, yes.
Yeah. Yes, at the back. I think this will be our last question.
Thanks for a wonderful film, Mike.
Thank you.
Just interested in the exploration of the relationship between mothers and daughters in your films. First with Secrets and Lies, and now with this film. Did you ever consider showing the death of Pearl, in a sense, and having allowing audiences to see that? Was that ever something you discussed with the actors, or did you always know you would never have Pearl present in the film?
No. I mean, what happened is, we invented the two, Pansy and Chantal, and we talked into their world and we explored their relationship. Pearl was never played by an actress. We talked her into, we had her very three-dimensionally there so that we could do the work. And then one day we were talking into existence one of many occasions where Pansy goes round to the flat, and we said, okay, she goes in, she goes upstairs. And then I said, she goes into the bedroom and Pearl is dead in the bed. Because I knew, A, that nobody was going to play Pearl, and B, I was looking ahead to what's important is their relationship and the way, because we'd already explored and brought into existence the nature of the dynamics between the three of them. So what you're asking about would presuppose me knowing in advance that I was going to choose or not choose to have that. That was never an option because no one was playing Pearl. But that's not important. What's important is the experience of the death of Pearl as it earns its keep in the film, in what you see. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So thank you, and thank all of you.